everyone, it's Karen here and welcome back to my channel. I have a brand new tutorial today. I'm planning on altering this tray. This is you can see that, sorry about the reflection because it's very shiny, but it won't be soon. This is a recyclable tray that I think it was a dip inside of it or a cake, some kind of cake inside of it. Somebody brought us, or I bought something. I can't remember where I got this from, but it's one of those trays from the grocery stores. And it wasn't too damaged or dirty, so I thought, wow, this is really cool. I can do really cool things with this. I don't know, I just had an idea about this, and I knew that I wanted to add this circle. I don't know if I want to add it in the middle or on the side. I have no idea. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cover this whole thing in black gesso, just to basically cover it up. And I might mount this after on top of something, and I will list all the supplies below in the description area, but just so you know, some of them might be old, but it's just mainly I want to teach you the technique more than actually what I'm doing. So if you're watching these videos, if you want to recreate, you can always substitute things. I will try to list as many ones as I can. Thank you so much, and I will just get started. So I'm going to use the heavy black gesso. This is a Prima Finnabair Art Basics. And all I'm going to do, I'm going to take a paintbrush and just basically give this a coat of gesso. So the reason why I want to give the gesso is a great primer. And this tray is very shiny. It's made out of plastic. And when you have something so shiny, it's really hard to apply paint and mediums on it. So gesso is a good way to have a base for your mediums or for the paints, and that way you don't get things coming off it. So it's really good to add a coat of gesso. Now this is black already, so sometimes it's hard to see where I'm applying the gesso, but you can sort of tell because this gesso is matte. And wherever I've put the gesso, it becomes, the background, the surface becomes matte instead of being shiny like it was at the beginning. So I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to embellish this, but I just thought it was a great piece, and I'm really excited to use this and embellish for this project. And I just want to get the edges here. Okay, now I have to let this heat set without actually heat setting it. Sorry, I have to let this set and dry up without heat setting it because it's plastic and it might warp. So this project might take a little bit longer only because I actually cannot dry things. I have to let everything dry naturally. In the meantime, I'm going to color this nice resin. This is a Prima Frank Garcia resin, memory hardware. And it's a round one, which is what I wanted. I wanted something round so it would work well with the background. I think I want to add some texture to this. I might grab some string. My friend Tiffany, who always inspires me, she always adds really cool threads to these resins, and I am going to do that. It's a great idea that she always has, and I've always wanted to add that. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to wrap this in thread, but first I want to finish painting it. It always adds so much texture when you do that. So that's a good idea, and go watch some of her videos. You will see how amazing she is and how cool her projects are. So go watch out some of her videos. You will really get inspired by that. Anyway, so I'm going to finish coloring this. And then I will dry this up. This one I can definitely dry because it's not a plastic. So I can dry this and it will not be a problem because it's resin and it can take heat. Okay, so I'm just going to heat set this one. And then I'll show you what I'm going to do with this one as well. Okay, to embellish this one a little bit, I took some of this wire. This is a wire thread from Prima, but any jute cord or any type of string would work for this. It doesn't really matter which one you use. I just use wire because it's easier to put around, and you could use actual like wire. You don't have to use this, and I'm going to kind of open this up and thread it through. So it just looks really cool to add some texture this way. And this I learned, as I said, I mean, I've seen this done before, and I just love when Tiffany does it, and I will link her channel below, or at least her video where she did this, so you can see what I mean. And I just wrap it around, basically. The nice thing about the wire is that it stays in place. This is why I like that. But again, you don't have to use this. You could use just regular wire. You can buy wire at the hardware store or at the dollar store, and that would work just as well. Oops. So it's just basically going around, maybe not such long pieces. I'll cut this in half because otherwise I can't go around so easily. And it's really easy to just basically turn it around. And you can do this with, as I said, with cord as well. You don't have to do it with a wire. It just looks really, really cool with the wire. So there you have it. And this is going to be covered again in black gesso. So all I do is just paint this again in the black gesso and cover everything. That way it evens up. So this is why I always say, if you want to have an even coat of something, just cover it in gesso. Whether it's white or black gesso, you can just do that, and then it will cover everything. It will make it look all the same surface, which is what you want to accomplish. And I mean, the strings are shifting a little bit, and that's okay. The wire, I don't mind. It's not a big deal. You could add glue if you want to actually stick it. So there you go, and I'm going to heat set this as well. And then it's prepped for the next step. Okay, so I gathered a bunch of metals and other things that I wanted to include for my focal point and for the canvas. First, this is going to go in the middle. And then I'm recycling some old lids. Oh, there's some gesso on them. So these are lids that I've used for, like, I mean, I've finished like these containers, and then I'm just using them. It's perfect to prop things up. So I'm just using things like this. And then I can prop up my center piece, which is this. This is a metal that I got somewhere else. I don't even remember where. And I just collect pieces of metal, jewelry, things like that, old jewelry. I'm not sure which side is nicer. I think this is the side that it goes. And I might paint these all in black, so that way it's easier to do. And then I'm going to arrange all these metals in a different way. I already kind of looked at how I want to arrange them, and I took a picture of it. I always do this. I arrange them and then I take a picture of it on my phone, and that way I can refer to this so I know exactly where everything was. So that way I can basically fix everything and put everything where it's supposed to. So before I do that, I'm going to color these lids in black, and I'm going to glue them to the background because I already know they go there. And in order to glue them, I'm going to use the heavy body gel, the same one that you saw the lid. So this is the heavy gel. You could also use 3D gel for that as well. So I'm going to use these. Now, so I'm going to be using this gel, and I'm going to glue the lid. All I do is I put a little bit of glue on the edges. This way it will glue perfectly inside. Then I'm going to glue the second one, but first I want to color it in. I will definitely glue this then, so that way it stays in place where I want it. And this glue, it's gel, it dries clear, so you don't have to worry about this, but I do clean up the little pieces, that way it will not interfere and it will not look bulky. So I'm going to open this up and I'm going to work tandemly with this. I want to make sure that I cover this in gesso, otherwise it's really hard after to do that, to actually cover everything around, especially underneath things. So I'm just lightly covering this. Then I'm going to add the glue. Doesn't matter if the gesso is still wet. It doesn't really matter because everything will just become one. But you do definitely can dry it if you want to. It's not a big deal. This white one will be a bit harder to cover, so I just want to make sure that I put everything on top. And then I will just cover this one as well. So these lids are great because you can use them to prop things up and make it look really 3D. Like you can really prop things onto like projects. I love using lids. I find these, I recycle all my lids. But you could also use wooden pieces or basically anything you want. Okay, now I'm going to basically first paint the back of this a little bit, at least in the edges. So that way it's not, you know, when you're trying to get underneath it with the black gesso, it becomes hard to do that. So that's way you will not see these parts when you're adding the rest of the things. So in this case, I always like putting things up first. I like arranging things and then gluing them and then putting the gesso. But for these large pieces, what I'm doing is I'm painting them first. And it's up to you. You could glue them right away, but I find it easier this way only for these large pieces. The smaller ones I'm going to glue first and then I'm going to add them to the, and then I'm going to paint them with the black gesso. Let me just dry this a little bit. And because it's metal, you have to be careful you don't get burnt. I also want to dry up this lid. Then to glue this, I'm going to put a good chunk of this on top of this lid. I want to make sure that it glues really, really well because this is my focal point. And I have like lots of stuff sticking out, and that's okay. I'm just going to kind of spread it. That way it really glues well. I want it to be stuck there permanently. And then I'm just going to add this. Now you could let everything dry first. I'm just very impatient when I do these things, and I want things to like dry up right away, or I work together and just do them on the spot as I'm doing right now. I'm gluing and adding these because I'm not going to be moving this too much, so I will definitely have to let this dry overnight. But right now when I'm just adding the pieces, this is my focal point. I always like doing that. So I like adding large focal points and then adding the rest of the things. So there we go. There is the focal point. It's attached here. And now I'm going to start adding the other pieces and gluing them. Since I know already more or less where they go, I can just start putting the glue to begin with in the back. Otherwise, if you don't do that, then you can just arrange the whole thing first and then and then glue it. But that means that you would have to take it off. So since I already took it off because I took a picture of it, I can just go ahead, oops, that's not what I meant to do. I can just go ahead and glue these. And these are falling. Okay, so this one is an old medal that I used to have. Oh, I think this is it might be a Tim Holtz, but it's old. And I'm going to lift this a little bit just to kind of fit it over here. It's going to go in between the two grooves. So this is inside this. If I really want to, I could color everything in black, but I'm just too lazy to do every single embellishment in black. I don't have patience for that. That I definitely don't have patience for. So I can kind of look to see where this goes. Yeah, so it's going to touch there and there. So I kind of look to see where things are going to touch, because some of things are in the air basically. When I already have everything in place, I take a small paintbrush and I start carefully cleaning up the residue of the glue to make sure that it doesn't stick out that way, because I want it to be smooth, right? I want the pieces to stand out on their own and not have these gloppy glue everywhere. So that's all I do. I just clean up in between, especially in all the nooks and crannies. And then all I have to do is just let this dry, and I will give it a coat of gesso. But this has to be dry overnight. So I'm going to let this dry at least for a few hours. You can definitely heat set this. I do heat set it when I'm in classes and stuff like that. But right now I might let this dry because I can't heat set this particular plastic. I'm worried that it will actually like melt. So I'm just going to let this dry naturally. But before I do that, one of the things that I want to add is art stones. To add the mega stones, which are these large stones from Prima Finnabair, I use soft matte gel, and I'm going to add them in here because I really wanted to create some kind of circular movement with them. So what I do is I dip the paintbrush into the gel first, and then I dip it into the stones. That way, as soon as I put it down, they already have the gel on them. And I will change. So it gives amazing texture to anything. These stones are just fantastic. They're one of my favorite things to use to embellish with. So it's really nice to just add a lot of texture and create texture, I mean, with these stones. I really love doing that. And if you need more glue or more gel, you go ahead and you dip your paintbrush again. And although I'm using my good paintbrushes, feel free to use cheaper paintbrushes that don't get ruined as easily. You could also, in this case, because I have it kind of closed in here, I might actually just put the glue where I want it. It's a little bit different than my usual technique, but I just want to add the stones inside here. And since I have the grooves already, it looks really, really cool. So I'm using like the pattern of the circle to kind of create this movement. In this case, they fit perfectly, which is great. This is exactly what I wanted to do. So there is one set, and then I want to create some here. So, and also here. So I think here is going to have some underneath, and a little bit over here. That's good. These are really great to create the texture. And everything will basically dry overnight together, which is great. So I'm going to put some here and some here, kind of going in this direction. And everything dries clear. All the gel, everything will dry clear. But anyways, we're covering it with gesso, so it doesn't really matter. You will not see these. And they're very, very light. It's really easy to put them on. I think I also want to put some inside here. A couple here as well. I'm using this all like the bottom of the jar because I didn't have very little, but if you don't want to get it stained, all you have to do is just put some gel in a mat or on a plate, on a palette, or whatever you want, and that way you don't get it stained the way I did. So that's basically it. This is my layout, and I'm going to let this dry overnight. Okay, so I'm going to cover everything with black gesso, so that way I could put the paints on top. And now everything is fully dry. It's been 24 hours. So I'm going to be coating everything again, including what I already have. Everything needs a coat of gesso so it can be even for adding the paint. You want all the surfaces to be the same. So that's why gesso is so important, because even if you have lots of different types of surfaces such as metals, resin, plastic, wood, basically anything, you can go ahead and add gesso, and then it evens up the field. Everything becomes the same. And to get into the nooks and crannies here, I'm going to use a small paintbrush, but at first I want to get the bulk of it done with the larger paintbrush. So it's just basically painting everything on top. And I've done this many times, so I'm sure you've seen this on my videos before. Today I'm going to use different types of paints just to show a variety of what can be used with black gesso. And for this one, I need to kind of push my paintbrush inside so I can get inside in between all the little art stones. I want to make sure that I cover them all so I don't see any whiteness in it or glue or anything that it just might have been there. It's not so hard to cover them, but they need to be really well glued. You need to have the gel fully dry. So when I'm teaching a class, I mean, you heat set this really well. But if it's, you see, and they still even maybe come up a little bit. Okay, those that come up, I need to get off. Sorry. So if it's not glued properly, this is what's going to happen, you see. And it could still happen. I can control that. Oops, you see there's one stuck to my paintbrush. And it is what it is. You go with the flow. If one of them is not stuck properly, there's nothing I can do about it. Nothing I can do about things like that. I'm going to turn this around so I can get the bottom part, and it also helps me see if any areas that I've missed. And that's good as well. So I'm just going to finish up adding all the black gesso everywhere, and then we'll get to the next step. I will dry it up and we'll get to the next step. And here I'm just using a small paintbrush because I can get into the little spaces everywhere and add the last finishing touches. Once you dry, you might have to go back and see if you didn't miss any spots, because when you have it wet, you can't really tell sometimes. Okay, to color this in, I want to use some acrylic paints, some FolkArt color shift paints, which are interference paints. They're very similar to the Opal Magic, and what happens is that they react differently whether you add them on a white canvas, a white surface or a black surface. So you never know what you're going to get. It's kind of fun in that way. So I got a couple of paints, and I'm going to be using them and figure out, and mixing them together. So I'm going to put some on my mat. It's just easier to work with that on my mat as well. And here's the other color. So on the surface they look green and purple, but they might react differently when put on black, and that's what we're going to find out. They kind of become a different color. If you see here, it's not really purple. It's more like a bronze, and it's beautiful. It has a bronze and purple together. Wow, this is really, really pretty. So what I am doing is I'm actually painting some of these embellishments, and I'm going to mix a little bit of the green. I'm trying to get this a little bit more of a dry and it's becoming a little bit green as well. So there is that bronzy color and the green color kind of mixed up. And it looks beautiful. I think I put too much here, and I want to kind of remove some of it. I want it to kind of look with a better, more shadow on it. There we go. So you want to have a fairly dry technique on this. That way you just get the surface of the embellishments, and it looks really cool. Now I wish I would have put some texture in here. I'm also going to add some of the waxes as well. So as you see, these are very similar to the Opal Magic paints, but they're made by a different company. And they're just as beautiful. Looks really cool. I'm trying to get into the nooks and crannies of these places. I have to turn this around. It looks very vintage. They look almost bronze, right? Maybe we should add a little bit of some kind of patina on this. Let's see. We'll figure it out in a second once I finish painting the whole area. This looks so cool. It looks like an antique plate or something like that. I really like them. They kind of blended the same instead of the color. So I think in white, they'll probably look like the color that they're supposed to be. But in this case, they became like a bronze color, which is beautiful. Really beautiful for this. So I brought 2 colors of the Art Alchemy waxes. This is the Antique Brilliance. I brought the Amethyst Magic and the Mystic Turquoise. I thought I would want to add some purple or blue into this. And I was going to say that if you love the Opal Magic line of Prima, then you will love this, because actually Opal Magic does not have a color that turns everything bronze, which is really, really cool. I am quite impressed. It's a dual color, because in white it will look purple or green for that matter. So I'm really, really excited about that. But I want to add some of these. I'm going to start with the purple because I want to see how it looks. I kind of feel like having some purple in things. And I think it will help to have a little bit of the purple. I might put some blue as well. We'll see. And I like to sometimes use my finger, and sometimes that's very cool. So I'm not going to add it everywhere. I want to keep some of that bronze because it looks so nice. Let's see how the blue looks, because these Antique Brilliant, they kind of have brown in them too. So I want to make sure that the blueness comes out. That looks really nice. So the interference paints with these waxes just make it look so beautiful. Wow, I really, really love them. And I will add some probably gold as well. I can't wait to add some gold into this. Maybe some aged brass as well. Yeah, this really lightens everything up. So the bronze with the aged brass with all the other waxes looks so, so amazing. All the colors kind of intertwine with each other. You can also grab a stipple brush and kind of get in there. Okay, I just had to switch the mats on because I was working on another project and I wanted to add a little bit more wax, and I took the rich copper wax. I wanted a little bit of that orangey color. I felt like it needed a little bit of orange to kind of blend it all in some areas. And I think it makes a difference and kind of makes it a little stand out a little bit. And it's hard to see how much things add, like these waxes really add. And I'm going to glue this on top of some kind of canvas. Although it's pretty sturdy, I'm going to glue it on top of some kind of canvas because I really want to make sure that it's really sturdy and that I can hang it up. Or maybe on some chipboard, I'm not sure, like some nice cardboard. I'll figure out something to glue this on. So I just want to thank everybody for coming and seeing my project today. Thank you so, so much. If you liked my video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends on social media. I would love for you to comment anything if you have any questions, and just let me know if you create something with the same inspiration, or if you like something that I do, please let me know. I would love to hear it, and I would love to see anything that you got inspired by. And share, and subscribe to my channel. I would love you to do that as well. Thank you so much. Have an amazing day. Bye.